Hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Today with Tally. The mission and goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and search Today with Tally. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the program as well. Ladies and gentlemen, your host of the evening, Mr. Brian Tally.
Welcome back to the Today with Tally podcast, where we add real life value to the lives of everyday people. Folks, it has never been easier to listen to this podcast. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Twitter, and Facebook. Simply search Today with Tally and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to get every episode and stay up to date with the latest and greatest our guests in this show has to offer. Folks, are you a business owner? If you are, I'm talking directly to you right now, folks. Advertise your business right here on this podcast. Let me help you reach your goals. Let's put a marketing plan together and develop a strategy to take your business to the next level. We have got some very great engagement on all of our social media platforms, and we are reaching the hearts and minds of so many people out there in the country that may be looking for what you have to offer, whether it's a business service, it's an event that you're trying to get out to the general public, if it's merchandise, shirts, gear, you name it, I'm your guy. Hit me up today, thetallybill@gmail.com. That's thetallybill@gmail.com. Folks, be like Mountain Man Dan. Today's show sponsor is Dan Francis with the Mountain Man brand. He's our great friend out in Canyon City, Colorado. You can get your gear today simple by going to his website, mtnmn.com. That is mtnmn.com. This is one of his hats, MM for Mountain Man. It's got the freaking mountains. It's got the website right there, mtnmn.com. This guy is from the Western heritage, folks. He is keeping that Western way of life alive. Plus, he's also one of the executive board members with the Military Rodeo Cowboy Association. This guy's doing big things in the community. So like I said, go check out the Mountain Man brand, mtnmn.com. The website's right there for you, right there. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. Now, Major Scott Huesing, United States Marine Corps, retired. This guy right here spent 24 years in the Marine Corps, combat Marine veteran. He's a nationally recognized speaker, and he's also the executive director of Save the Brave. And with that, we are honored to be joined by Major Scott Huesing, United States Marine Corps retired. How are you, sir?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Brian.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine. It's always nice having, friends on the program. And, I haven't talked to you and seen you in quite some time. I think the last time we actually were in each other's, circle, if you will, in person was your 50th birthday party at your ranch there in Temecula. That was a great time.
Time flies, man, for sure.
Yeah, got a band out there. You got some 55-gallon drums with fire in it, and it was a good time, man. I mean, I even remember those cookies that you guys had home, man. Those were awesome. The 50th birthday cookies, the Echo and Ramadi cookies. I mean, I tell you what, man, that was a good time.
Yeah.
Mr. Scott. Okay, so I see that fire there in the background. I know you're still in Southern California. Explain that whole deal. Is it cold down there today?
I'm up in the mountains, about 7,500 feet. So still snow on the ground. It's melting fast. But yeah, we had a crazy winter up here. Probably the first time ever they had blizzard conditions in Southern California. And then, although I didn't ski here, I was up in Mammoth Lakes, and that place got over 700 inches of snow this year. So it's nice. It's a great community. There's a ton of veterans up here, but I travel a lot. I've been doing a lot of work through the nonprofit and still speaking, probably about once or twice a month. And it's nice though to be in a little small resort town and be connected still. It's pretty cool.
Man, I love it. Yeah, I've got a good buddy of mine, Rocky Wines, lives up there in Big Bear, and he he was putting some crazy pictures on Facebook over the last several months, and I couldn't believe the depths of snow that was going on up there in Big Bear. I mean, those guys were stranded for like 10 days. Of course, they don't have a truck. He's got this little car, and I'm like, man, what are you doing living up there in this little tiny car? It's hilarious. So, Scott, I want to start off with this quote that you have, and we're going to jump right in. The quote now is, "In war, destruction is everywhere. It eats everything around you. Sometimes it eats at you." And again, that's from you, Major Scott Huesing, Echo Company Commander, former Echo Company Commander. Can you explain that quote to us?
I think I wrote that to really encapsulate the story Echo and Ramadi, which is about my time as a commander of over 250 Marines, soldiers, and sailors as we fought in Ramadi, Iraq back in 2006 and 2007. And the book itself is a snapshot in history, but it's really become this story about people and this amazing power of human connection and leadership and team building and ultimately overcoming adversity as well. And that's why it's, why we've been so successful in sharing that story. It was not only historically important, but I think it spoke to a lot of the emotions that people who fought and the families that supported us, and understanding that those types of conditions are obviously life-changing, especially for the 18, 19-year-old Marines that I led, but for everybody at every level of leadership. And those types of events and seeing the worst of what humanity has to offer, it changes you, it transforms you as a person, and it eats away at you, and it takes a little bit of your normalcy away, I think, throughout the rest of your life. And I think even when you leave, a lot of the guys are still deal with that. It's one of those things that you really just can't ever shut the switch off of, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't move past it and you can't continue to be successful in life. And I think that even after writing that story, I think that's a very important message within the veteran community too, is we need to be focused on the light as well as some of the darker points. And I've really been making a concerted effort across a lot of different platforms and a lot of different circles to really remind people of that. Is there is so much greatness that veterans are capable of, and those periods of our past, especially for the guys and people that have served in combat under some of the most intense conditions, they're doing great things, and we need to highlight those more, because we've been talking about this a lot, and it's having a very direct impact on our recruiting efforts service-wide. So I've really been making an effort I love talking about the story, and I love talking about all the great things that the men and women did during that time. But we've also got a responsibility as people who are influencers that have some sort of impact in whatever capacity to share a lot of the greatness too, because I think that it's always easier to talk about those harder points than it is the good ones.
Sure. Now, for months, from the winter of 2006 through early 2007, there was nearly 250 Marines of Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines that fought daily in Ramadi. And of course, you were the company commander of Echo Company. And this was some of the most deadliest, fighting, in a very deadly city in Iraq and throughout the Al Anbar province. Now, I know there's great responsibility in being a company commander. Like you said, you got 18 and 19-year-old kids out there that you're leading in combat. Of course, they're not kids, they're Marines, but still very young, and they're looking to you for leadership. Now, what was that experience like with that great deal of responsibility when you were in such a hot zone, if you will?
Well, when you talk about the age of the Marines and sailors and soldiers that were part of my company, um, you don't really think about how young they are. And yeah, they're Marines, but for the average person in America, I don't think they realize the amount of responsibility that is thrust on them at such a young age. I mean, in all reality, the majority of those Marines were playing high school football, not a year prior to them being thrust into the uh, into the baptism of fire. And what's interesting too is it probably wasn't until I started writing the book where I really looked back and I was dissecting the characters that I wrote about that were emblematic of most of the Marines that fought. And I was looking at their ages, and they were 18, 19, 20-year-old men. And I thought about how that type of fighting and under those type of intense, life-changing conditions where, yeah, we were fighting 5, 6, 7 times a day in direct contact with a very well-trained enemy force. And they were crushing it. But I really didn't think about how that impacted a 20-year-old Marine and the things that I was asking them to do day in and day out, these life-changing events that as they were surrounded by most certain danger and complete uncertainty on most days, how that affected them. Because I was a 35-year-old captain at the time. So I'd had a lot of life experience. I had a lot of combat experience at that time, but I hadn't really thought about how an 18-year-old Marine compartmentalizes all of that trauma, all of that fighting, and still carries on and is successful, and how I did it at age 35. And so that was kind of illuminating to me. I never had these big catharsis moments as I write, but that was kind of an analytical one where it really made me. It really makes me think about how impressive the military is as an organization, what they do fundamentally, organizationally, to transform young men and women into U.S. Marines. And I'll talk about the Marines because obviously we're a little partial, Brian, but I think that it's really a testament to how great they are because they do so many things well. And I was very fortunate to have a group of men that they weren't some hand-selected group of special forces Marines. They came from everyday walk of life, and being able to recognize all of the individual talents that they had, from being an electrician or a mechanic to a guitar player. Those were the little things that I think I was lucky enough to understand that group of artisans is what made it so great. And the fact that we still talk regularly today, almost 20 years later, and man, I tell you, I can't believe how fast that time flies. They're all doing great things. And I look back at that part of our life, and that was just one part. And they continue to do well in life and thrive. And yeah, we've had some challenges too, and some heartbreak after we left, but it's remarkable to me to see the leadership at every level continues throughout the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and like you said, the 18 and 19-year-olds, if we don't have 18 and 19-year-old kids in the Marine Corps, we don't have a Marine Corps. That's a very large portion of the Corps.
It is, and I think that we were talking about this before the show. Is I really do feel that this has to be talked about, this recruiting crisis that's plaguing our military service branches, because there's a bigger problem tied to this, Brian, is without all of these things, without men and women serving in our military, it has a direct impact on our national defense, our overall national security. And it is a strategic imperative from every American, especially within the veteran community, that we get the best and brightest to serve, and that we let them know the benefits of service and find a way to communicate all the great things that happen, because everybody that enjoys life as they know it in America, a free market enterprise, they won't enjoy that. It's not a matter of if, but when it could collapse. because we have to be very concerned about this, because last year the Army failed to recruit 20,000 potential candidates. So we don't have 3 to 5 years to wait to solve this problem. We have to figure out a solution on how to do that. And I've been very fortunate to start working with an amazing tech company down in San Diego. And we're actually trying to find a part of the solution to leverage technology into the hands of military recruiters service-wide. Because if we don't do this, if we don't bridge the gap between now and then, and all of the physical hurdles that our military recruiters are enduring, and God forbid there's another pandemic on the horizon, and if there is, how do we bridge that gap? So we're looking at ways to solve those problems through technology. So I'm really passionate about this lately, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because every listener, every veteran out there has to understand their responsibility. Guys like me and you, I call legacy holders. You know, we have kids, we have, you know, family members and friends that have kids, and we have influence on them. And right now, the legacy holders are not really banging the drum very loudly to have our kids and our friends' kids join the military, because there has been probably what I consider a great deal of confidence lost, not just in our political leadership, but also at the senior military level of leadership. And, you know, young kids, Gen Z and millennials, they want all of the questions answered. I don't subscribe to all of the Wall Street Journal articles that say patriotism's dead. It's not. But we have an absolute responsibility to share all of the wins and some of the losses with these younger generations, to let them understand that how great the military service is. Yeah, it's a high risk endeavor. It's not like working at IBM. It's just not. It takes a special type of person to serve. And the benefits of it, though, I'm telling you, and you know this, they're lifelong. They last forever, and you really enjoy those benefits. And I'm very fortunate to talk about those in a lot of different circles, not just in the military or when I, you know, go back on bases and talk to active duty or veterans, but well outside of the veteran space. And I think that I've really gained a lot as a person and gotten a lot smarter from dealing with so many diverse groups talking about it.
Now, being that you brought up the recruiting efforts, I want to stay here for just a minute before we get on, with your career, your book, your speaking engagements as you become a nationally very well-known speaker that's very effective and successful in speaking to a broad base of folks, a wide variety of people, from colleges to high-end business corporate executives. But as you said, there's a lot of folks out there that have trust issues right now with what's going on in our country, the way it's being ran. The military recruiting efforts are failing. But you've taken it upon yourself to get off the sidelines and put yourself into the game and become a part of this solution, if you will, on increasing those recruiting goals, in increasing folks to sign on that dotted line and write that blank check payable to the United States government, up to your life, if needed, to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, in your opinion, I know you've stated a few things on perhaps why the recruiting can be down, but what's the reasoning behind it? Have you guys nailed it down quite yet? And additionally, what sort of strategies are you guys putting in place now with your new mission that you're doing in helping the national recruiting shortage?
Well, that's a good question, Brian, because the genesis of this started in two ways. I was on the phone talking to another Marine veteran who's a friend of mine and also runs a veteran nonprofit. And we were talking about being more positive and changing the messaging within the veteran nonprofit space and getting away from all of the darkness, all the sadness, all the boozy vets and parading amputees on Super Bowl commercials and the homeless vets. I mean, that messaging right there has a very direct and indirect impact on the military recruiting establishment, because let's just say it for what it is. What 17 or 18-year-old kid wants to join the military if this is the image they see? Yeah, sign me up. Where do I sign? I'm going to join the military for 4 years, and then I get to live under a bridge or drink myself to the bottom of a scotch bottle. There's no incentive. So we have to change the message. And I think that there's a component too from mainstream media, everything that's portrayed in Hollywood. I mean, look who we have, look at the actors in the movies we're stuck with in our generation. Where are the Audie Murphys? Where are the Jackie Robinsons? Where are the Fred Smiths, founder of FedEx? Where were all these guys to be shown as positive examples of military service, and that, yeah, you join and you can enjoy some greatness on the back end. So when we started talking about that, I was introduced to a founder of a technology company in San Diego, and we really started talking just organically, man, about he's an Irish immigrant. He got his citizenship 2 years ago. He's been in the States for 10 years. My military service. And when he started talking about this technology, I was blown away. And I just hit the pause button. I said, hey, I really think that the military needs to get a look at this. And we're trying to figure out a way to again, infuse and leverage technology in the military recruiting establishment, because I got news for you. And anyone who's a veteran out there in our age group or close, even if they're a Vietnam vet, they're still recruiting the same way now as we were recruited 20, 30 years ago. It's kind of frightening, because in the last 20 years, we've had such a massive infusion of technology, from the iPhone to all of this AI technology that's infused in a lot of the algorithms that we're using. But for whatever reason, they're not subscribing to that. They're not using it. It's still very analog. And we've been talking to some very senior level officials about how to infuse this type of technology, because I'm a firm believer is, there's a time for talking and there's a time for doing. And trust me, the irony is not lost on me as we sit here bumping our gums for, 45 minutes to an hour. But at the end of these conversations, it's all about spreading a message as well. There's multiple parts to that campaign, is, making sure that everybody understands, like, this is the way forward, where old meets new. And most people, look at the way we're doing the show. I'm not driving over to your house and we're not recording it on a VHS RCA camera. We're not even doing it on our phones anymore. We're using web-based platforms. Who'd have thought we'd ever get movies through the internet? We never thought Blockbuster would be dead, right? So we're finding new ways to make the job of the individual recruiter at the ground level, all the way up to the senior levels of recruiting commands, easier, more accessible, decrease workload, improve efficiency. And all of those things tie to what's also important is a better quality of life, because there's no one on active duty or a veteran in the Marines or the Army that denies the fact that being a recruiter is the toughest job in the military. And they sadly also have higher rates of divorce, higher rates of suicide and alcoholism, because the job is just so demanding. So we're hopeful that we're doing our small part, because as we dive into this, we're doing our research. We're reading every article through mainstream media to those articles published in academia. But there's one thing that's been glaring at me too, Brian, is throughout all of this research, everybody's talking about the problems, talking about wokeness, talking about fatness, talking about apathy, talking about lack of patriotism. No one's talking about a solution. So we're pretty excited that we found a way to really help those on the ground. And to date, it's moving at a very rapid rate. Every single person we've gotten this technology in front of has been resoundingly, yes, I'm in. When do we talk more? So we're making some traction. And this endeavor is completely 180 degrees out from what I do as a public speaker and as a writer. But honestly, man, we do have a responsibility as veterans to be part of the solution, not just sit around a boozy, smoke-filled veterans hall and talk about problems, but really get engaged and do it. And I'm sure that this won't be on my epitaph, but to be part of something to help solve this problem, which has so many second and third order effects on our military, our national defense, our overall national security, to be a part of that and hopefully have made a change looking, in the very near future. That'll be something I'm very, very proud of.
That all makes sense to me. And you brought up some pretty good points there, about having these commercials of people missing limbs and, the suicide, all that getting force fed down our throats. And, you look at 18, 19-year-old kids saying, yeah, I think I'm going to go to college or I'm going to go to trade school. The military isn't going to be for me because everything I see is pretty much portrayed as being negative. Yeah. So again, you're changing that narrative, saying, "Hey, no, it's not all like that, guys." These are, some smaller type cases that can happen, of course, and we all know that war, there's a cost of war, there's a cost of freedom, and I think the majority of folks and Americans do know that. Especially after this 20-year war on terror, because, there are a lot of men and women coming home that have been gravely injured that are still going through those problems right now. But, I want to switch gears a little bit. Now, folks, we all know what a seasoned vet is, right? Seasoned vet, you hear it a lot in the sports world. Well, yeah, it's also a term that's widely used in the military world, right? Being a salty dog, having that experience and that wisdom to lead from the front and pull that rear all the way to the front so everybody's moving in the same direction. Now, Scott, Major Huesing here, United States Marine Corps retired. Now, his career spanned 10 deployments and countless operations in over 60 countries. Folks, 60 countries. Again, a lot of the people that are doing the whining in this country have never left their county, let alone state. This guy's been to 60 countries and is again, 10 deployments, combat deployments. Now, he served in some of the most dangerous places on the planet, including Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Horn of Africa. Now, Major Scott Huesing, retired, is most proud of leading those in Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, one of the most esteemed and highly decorated infantry units in modern urban warfare. This developed into you becoming a writer and writing the book Echo and Ramadi, which is also a #1 bestseller. I want to know from you, what inspires you to sit down one day as a retired major, an infantry company commander, if you will, to write this book about your experiences and the experiences of your Marines while fighting this deadly battle in Ramadi?
When I retired, I worked in the private sector for a little bit. It was, great. It was a building experience, but I just hit a point where I wanted to do something else. So I locked myself in the studio and I started writing. And I've always been an artist. I've always been a writer, and it's been a very, it's a portable medium. You can do it anywhere. I initially started out writing the book because I really felt that the Battle of Ramadi and the Second Battle of Ramadi was such an important part in military history. I didn't want that to get swept under the rug or left in the shadows of other very significant battles like Fallujah, Kandahar, Baghdad. What we did in Ramadi in 06, 07, and even in 2004, when we fought there the first time, it really redefined what we knew as a military of urban fighting. I mean, what we experienced in 06, 07, and I was very lucky to have some of the Marines in my command who had fought in 04. And I did over 100 interviews with Marines and soldiers and their families, just so I made sure that I got the story right, because I wanted to make sure it was right. Because let's face it, if you miss one beat, the Marines are good at a lot of things, that they will eat you alive if you're incorrect about something. So I made sure I did the homework. But the historical aspect of writing this story was important. But what really happened along the way was I got so much emotion and so many other stories that I didn't even know had happened from the Marines as they told me. It was just really a revelation when I started hearing these. And what happened was the story became more about this power of human connection. And yeah, there's the fighting and the friction and all of the things that some people think are more romantic aspects of what we do when we go to war. But it was also about the families and my interpreters and everybody along the way that supported us and supported me. And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today if it had not been for the bravery and courage and sacrifice of these young men and women and all of the guys that fought under my command and the leadership at every level. That's really what saved the day. I tell you, what they did day in and day out was just beyond superhuman. And they took care of each other, and they took care of me better than anything I'd ever experienced in my life. And that connection still continues to this day. And it's something I'm pretty proud of.
Now, we are being joined by U.S. Marine retired Major Scott Huesing, who is a best-selling author. He is a nationally recognized speaker. He's also the executive director of Save the Brave. Now, what you're doing now, and I know, we're getting through a lot of information here because, I mean, you've done so much in your storied career. I mean, you're one of the, in my eyes, you're one of the storied poster veterans, some of the greatness, some of the best veterans that our country has to offer, just because of everything you have your hat in, everything you have that you're a part of. You're a very smart guy. You're a brilliant mind. A lot of guys say, oh, wow, 24 years as a major. Folks, he started enlisted. This guy started as an enlisted Marine, worked his way all the way up to become a company commander, and not just a company commander of Echo Company 2-4, but I'm talking about a highly decorated, very skilled Marine that strategizes outcomes before they even happen. And that's how he saves lives. That's how he leads Marines in combat. And that's exactly what he's doing today. He's going out and he's inspiring our nation's youth. He's inspiring our college students. He's inspiring business executives at some of the highest level corporate, businesses in our country. Now, being a nationally recognized speaker, how are you able to you speak a Marine language, and Marines can understand that. A lot of, soldiers, sailors, alike can understand that language that you speak as a Marine, as a retired Marine, as a major, as a leader in the United States Marine Corps. How do you change that message to be understood in a way that a business executive or a high school student or a college student can fully understand without having ever served in the military? How do you reach these folks, Scott?
Well, you mentioned something that I think is pretty important. You were leaning on the history and all of the things I did, and I'm very, very proud to have had a lot of opportunities to be surrounded by so many great people. And I always remind people too is that the Marine Corps especially touts itself as this great meritocracy of being promoted and recognized for what you've done, and but also we promote based off what you're capable of doing. So I'm not trying to be overly humble. I just say that's what I did. Those are all things that I did, and they're a big part of who I am. They help shape who I am today. But I try to always focus on what people are doing now, and what are you going to be doing in the next 5 years? How are you going to continue to improve as a leader? How are you going to continue to adapt new ways of thinking and learning and influencing other people? And I think that there's a real importance on that. And granted, I sit in a position now where I kind of have that luxury to speak to so many different groups about my experiences and about what I'm doing now. But I'm also really quick to remind them is like, yeah, those are all great things, but what are you doing now? I think you can build off of all of your past experiences. And again, being in the position I am now, I do have the luxury of sharing a lot of the losses too, because one of the things I enjoy sharing most is what did I screw up at in life? And trust me, there was plenty from early ages in high school, running from the cops and drinking underage and finally getting roped into the Marine Corps by a buddy of mine. That was a pivotal event, obviously. But as you go through life, even as a leader, you make bad decisions. And those are usually the ones that you remember the most, but what people are too embarrassed or ashamed of to admit the most. So being able to do that now, I think that being able to share those losses in life, I think the younger generation needs to hear those, because I don't think that Marines enjoy being lionized or becoming some sort of iconic figure. For the most part, what they enjoy most is being able to share to make sure that the next generation is set up for success. And I'm not a generationalist. I've never been accused of one. I think there is greatness in every single generation, from millennials to Gen Zs. And I say that freely. I say that I sleep well at night knowing that the 24 years that I spent in the Marine Corps and training those around me, they're doing that job now. And most Americans who bash millennials or bash Gen Z and they're always on their phone or they're not as strong as we are, they're now part of the problem. And I got news for you. If you have to call the cops right now, Brian, or you stub your toe and you cut it open and you go to the emergency room, that's going to be a millennial that's stitching you up or that shows up at your doorstep to protect you. Those are the millennials. The men and women standing on the rails of Navy ships, millennials. So we have to embrace that, and we have to share those points of pain and our lessons learned freely, because if you don't, you're not part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. And we have a responsibility to do that. And I think that there's not enough of that. There's an over reliance on garnering and obtaining information online through uncredible sources or through mainstream media, which is extremely biased on one side or the other. And they're not having real conversations anymore. So we've got to get better at that. And I think that, I'm pretty happy to be a part of that solution.
Mm-hmm. You credit, and as you should, the majority, much of your success to the Marine Corps. That's where you spent 24 years of your life. That's just under half of your life in the Marine Corps. That's, all really at the end of the day, plus the stuff that you've done after retirement and stuff like that. Now, you've created this leadership model, through, again, the trials, the triumphs, the experience, the wisdom, the loss, the sacrifice. Explain your leadership model, if you will, to our audience that is steeped in tradition, values, and mission success.
Well, I always wanted my leadership philosophy to be something that was memorable. It had to be short. It could not have been this page-long soliloquy that was slapped up above the urinals in the locker room or on a bulletin board with my face on it, where, yes, maybe some of the Marines might have read it, but it had to be to that succinct, memorizable nature that in my absence, I always wanted the Marines to know what I expected of them. And it was pretty simple. It was basically three pillars. We will train hard, we will fight, and we will win. That was it. That was my leadership philosophy at that level. And in my absence, I saw that going down in a couple different ways. When the Marines were out in the middle of the bowels of a city of over 300,000 people, and they're getting shot at, and they're struggling to survive and stay alive. And, one Marine looks at another and he says, "It's getting pretty bad out here. What do you think we should do?" And, Lance Corporal Talley says, "I don't know. What would the CO want us to do?" And that leadership philosophy kicks in, and he looks at the other guy and he says, "Win." So that's it. It was pretty simple. And I tried, that was by design, based off of a lot of great mentors and leaders that I've looked up to throughout life. And the list is too long to even start talking about those names. But the other thing too was there's a lot of people that surround Marine units that have a lot of influence, and we rely on them. And sometimes they don't view their roles as important. So I'm always quick to remind active duty Marines now, and even those in the veteran space that fought that maybe did not see direct combat, is one of the things I'm quoted most on saying is, there's no such thing as combat leadership, just leadership. You don't have to be getting shot at or blown up or kicking doors in Ramadi to be a great leader. You just don't. You have to listen to your people. You have to be a lifelong learner, and you have to make sound judgments based off of the needs of the mission. And I think that if there's one thing that I would share, and that I do share when I speak to groups around the country about the most important things of being a great leader, is listening. And I did not do that enough early on in my career. I think I learned at the right point, but had someone told me that earlier on in my career, understanding the importance of it is extremely vital to being successful as an organization, and not just a combat organization. That's a business organization, a nonprofit organization. Listening to those you lead is one of the most important things to me.
Mm-hmm. And again, I'm going to go back to how you effectively communicate this. You have a methodical approach to overcoming adversity, learn from the military, with a flexible application tailored for each organization to ensure that your message resonates. Now, we are living in a world where, it's just a different culture. There's, like you were talking about earlier, a lot of these kids, they ask a lot of questions. And I've spoken to a lot of high school students here in the Houston, Texas area over the last, 6 months or so. And they ask a lot of questions. Back when I joined the Marine Corps, I didn't really ask a lot of questions. I just said, sign me up. I mean, this is my last option here. But they are smart, and a lot of them are very highly educated. And again, that could be, the reason why the recruiting is down or whatever. But life changes, it evolves. And, you have got to be able to have a message, if you will, that resonates with these, with the younger generation. And I mean, what's that like, trying to shift from being this hardcore, company commander, retired Marine kicking in doors in Ramadi, like you were saying, to effectively speak on leadership without really bringing up the Marine Corps, to just straight do it in a civilian way, again, to where they can understand fully on what you're trying to address to make their life better, or to inspire them to do big things in their life.
Well, I don't ever shut off the fact that I was in the Marines for 24 years. I mean, that's, everybody knows that's what I did. When I try and remember, is if I get up in front of a group, regardless of what their vocation is or what their organizational affiliation is I try and share some of the leadership lessons and the failures and the challenges and those points that I did overcome a lot of adversity. And I want them to see that through my lens, and then ask themselves a question at the end, is how do I learn from this? And I'll give you an example. And it's through an organization I was asked to speak at by a fellow Marine. And there's a lot of veterans, but it was the International Crematoriums, Cemeteries, and Funeral Homes Association. And most people give me the same look. They think, why would this door-kicking Marine go talk to a group like that? And my answer is always the same. Why wouldn't I go talk to a group of 600 to 800 industry professionals that have to deal with someone walking through the front door of their business every single day on the worst day of their life, dumping all of that trauma that they're experiencing? Now, that business owner, that professional, has to compartmentalize all of that. Just walked in the front door, and they still have to be successful in business. And to me, the answer was instant. Yes, I definitely want to talk to that group of people. And through the ICCFA, they've been an amazing partner. And I've learned and met so many amazing people that are in this profession. This is just one of many that I've spoken to, but the connection that has come through that organization singularly has really become something more because they understand our veteran community. They give back to us. We have multiple people within the funeral home space that have selected Save the Brave as a beneficiary to help our veterans and support our mission through Save the Brave. This year alone, I'm going back to Kansas City next month, and I'm speaking at their first in-person convention since COVID. And they chose Save the Brave again to be a benefactor of their collective efforts. And this year's event is going to be even bigger. So it's a long answer to a short question, baby. But I think that sharing what I've done and then really turning it around and having an organization or a group of individuals ask themselves that question, how do I now get better through this? And I think that that's probably been the most effective way that I've shared a lot of those experiences.
Mm-hmm. Sure. What's it like sitting down with all these different groups of people, from different facets of life, and really, sharing a message again that will resonate with them. And like I said, inspire them to want to make themselves better. Not everybody wants to make themselves better. We've got the alphas out there, and then we've got the people again that don't really want to be out there and really being motivated. Do you have any stories that you could tell with us on perhaps some of the most successful type speeches that you've given where you've had people follow up with you maybe a year or two later down the road and said, you know what, you really changed my life in ways that I could have really never seen coming or ever imagined because that day you spoke to my class or you spoke to our business?
Oh, I'm very fortunate to actually have stories like that. But I always remind those in leadership positions is you don't do that for the recognition. You just don't. That's never the going in position. But I talk to people a lot about impact. That impact you'll make on someone's life as a leader. And, you never seek out the recognition. You'd be lying to yourself if you didn't say that it was nice when you do see it. But sometimes you'll say or do something in your organization or in your role, and you'll never see the impact. And you have to be good with that. But eventually, sometimes it's 5, 10, 20 years, or maybe it's never. You never see the impact again. But I've been very fortunate where I have had people reach back out to me and share how impactful my what I said to them was, or something I wrote, or something I defended on a moral platform. I think that it is very gratifying, but it's not the reason that I do it. It's not the reason most good leaders do those things. But you have to understand that you will have an impact. The things you say and do and write about, they will make an impact. And I challenge people often to really put that down on paper, where there's injustice or where there's an item for concern, or there's a veterans issue. And trust me, man, I never sit in any chair and profess to be the voice of the veteran community, because I'm not. I'm just doing my small part to again make an impact, because there's another thing that a lot of people don't have, and that's capacity. I'm very lucky to feel that I'm fueled by something that keeps this fire going, that keeps that capacity in me, willing to get out and share my thoughts, to share my message, to try and make an impact on other people's lives. And I'm also very cognizant of the fact that there are certain people that just don't have that capacity. It's just not where they are comfortable. And I'm fine with that, because that's how it is. That's how every great organization builds diversity to make the team great, is that you've got some people that are good at some things and some people that are good at others. So I know what I'm good at, but I also know what I suck at. So in those areas, my secret, just like most people who have enjoyed any success in life, is I just surround myself with smart people, because this is not a true confession. I've said it before, is, this is a kid that was born in Waukegan, Illinois, and barely squeaked out of high school with a 1.24 GPA. And I enlisted in the Marines. I managed to do much better in college, got my commission because I still wanted to serve and give back. And, that's where my story happened to end 24 years later after serving my country. And I'll tell you, there's no expiration date on my warrant as an officer. There's no expiration date. I feel that I'm going to continue to lead and surround myself with great people. It's a privilege that I enjoy to be asked to speak and share my story. It's a privilege to still lead veterans and help a veteran nonprofit space through SaveTheBrave.org and connect veterans in a safe space. So I think, as long as I got, that gas in the tank, Brian, I'm going to continue to do that. And will I be doing this in the next 5 years? I don't know. Will I be doing it in 10? I don't know. I'm going to continue to challenge myself as an artist, as a writer, as just being a great American. And I think that it's getting back to teaching basic civics lessons to younger generations so they understand, like, hey, you know what? Being an American, being patriotic is pretty cool. Being respectful, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of good things that come out of that. Investing in yourself, it's pretty cool. And you see the benefits, and sometimes it's a long-term investment that we need to share with younger generations so they see the greatness that can come out of military service and all of the things that I've enjoyed. I make no bones about it. The Marine Corps is a big part and has developed me in a lot of ways, but it never defined me as a person. I've always thought a little differently. I've operated a little differently. And I think that served me well, because I never forgot who I was growing up as, a kid who had a great mom that raised me and my brother on her own, to being kind of a wayward high school student that fought and drank underage and raced my motorcycle around and, ran from the cops and got caught by the cops. And ultimately these Marine recruiters were the ones that they didn't know it at the time, but they were making an impact in my life. And I'm still in touch with those guys today. It's a great Marine Corps family, but to really stay in contact with the one person who was directly responsible for recruiting me into the Marine Corps, to have him walk into the doors of a book signing event as a total surprise was one of the greatest surprises I've gotten during in the last 5 years. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. It's the camaraderie is real. The Marine Corps is a small gun club, and so it's very easy to know a lot of the same guys and to keep in touch and really nurture those relationships. Now, before we move on to Save the Brave, I do want to go back, because I was talking about you speaking and motivating and really getting really touching those that you're speaking to. And I don't want to do a disservice to those that I called unmotivated, because you can still be unmotivated and be successful in life. They just have they just maybe want to be back in the shadows more. They have a lot of great ideas, perhaps, but maybe not as, alpha centric as a guy like me or you are. And again, that doesn't make them unsuccessful. That just means that they have a different way of contributing in a way that makes sense to them. Maybe they're a little shy, but that doesn't mean that they're going to take what you are putting out there, because, people will take what they want and hear. And, like you can give 1,000 words out there, and those 1,000 words are all meaningful and they all mean different things. And perhaps a guy in class may take 12 of those words, or maybe someone may take 500, depending on what they're looking for in life. And again, I just wanted to make myself clear on that, because, we all think differently. We're all wired differently, and everybody can contribute in this country in a way that they feel more comfortable in doing so, with the skill set that they have and everything that's driving their mission and purpose behind it. Now, we have a great we have a huge problem in this country when it comes to veteran suicide. I've heard numbers of 20 to 22 to 40 to 30. No one really knows the exact number. All I know is that we have a problem in this country when it comes to veteran suicide. Now, you are the executive director of Save the Brave, and Save the Brave connects veterans through outreach programs to build strength of character. Now, your essential task is to prevent veteran suicide. What's the inspiration behind you getting involved in Save the Brave, and what exactly do you do at Save the Brave to help save these men and women who may be coming to you on their worst day of their life, needing help and needing some direction to help them through their daily struggles?
Well, I don't know if I'd use the word inspired to do what I do. Like many things in the veteran space, in military, there's a lot of tragedy. And one of my squad leaders, Simon Litke, killed himself in Minnesota. And we flew a bunch of the Marines up to support the family. And another young Marine who fought under my command, who's vastly successful at Bastard's Canteen, Nick Velez, he reached out to me and said he needed some help, and he wanted me to be the executive director. So I said yes, and I said we'll do it for the right people, for the right reasons, at the right rate, and we'll make sure we're making an impact. And so when we came back from Simon's funeral, the guys wanted to do more, so they created a 501c3, and we called it Save the Brave. And then they decided they want to take some guys offshore fishing in California. And that was 8 years ago almost. And last year we did over 30 fishing trips, in addition to an R&R program that we do in Bend, Oregon, and Texas. And we have a jiu-jitsu program. And we were very proud to award our very first scholarship to the children of veterans who've committed suicide last year, and hand Kayla Turner a check for $10,000. And really make an impact in her life. And what we do at Save the Brave is we connect veterans. That there's no other way to define it. You can get more granular than that, but at the end of the day, we want to provide a life-changing experience to kickstart veterans' lives, so they understand that there's greatness out there. So we that's part of our ethos. We connect, we empower, which means we show them what they can do. You can be a best-selling author even after almost flunking out of high school. You can own multiple restaurants, even if you were just a Lance Corporal on a machine gun in the Marine Corps. You can do all these great things. And then we ask them to continue to serve, to come back and help us with other veterans and share that message. And I think that that's how we continue to serve. That's how we live a life of lifelong service to others. And, it's not a bumper sticker. We believe this at the beginning and the end of every day, man. If you're not helping other people, you're not helping yourself. That's a fact. That is something I subscribe to, whether it's sharing my stories or experiences in the Marine Corps as a leader, whether it's sharing advice on how to write or how to do well in business, or whatever it is that I've benefited from in life. Being able to share that with people and help other people is how you get to where you need to be as a success. And, you started off talking about unmotivated people, or, maybe they need help in life, but it really boils down to, Brian, what your definition of success is, what your definitions of happiness are, of staying connected. Maybe you're connected to one person, maybe it's your best friend, and that's enough. That's for you to decide. But I think all those basic tenets that we talk about as a leader, as someone who's successful, is like, you need to know what makes you happy. And there's only one person that can make you happy. You're the only person that can make you happy. Your job's not going to make you happy. The money's not going to make you happy. Your significant other's not going to make you happy. They're going to do things that, you like, but at the end of the day, you have to make you happy. You have to make choices in life that are sometimes very hard decisions, but no, ultimately, that's how you feel is going to have the best outcome for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. Scott, we're running out of time here, man. I sincerely appreciate you coming on the program. I do want to recap for our audience out there, folks. Go ahead and get Scott's book today, Echo in Ramadi. Echo and Ramadi. It could be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or anywhere you get your books online. Folks, if you're looking for a nationally recognized speaker, a keynote speaker, a guy that can come in and really get a crowd going and really inspire those out there from high schools to all the way up to the highest levels of our corporate America, visit them online today at scotthuesing.com. That's scotthuesing.com. And then also, too, folks, Save the Brave. How can you help donate to that? I believe it's savethebrave.org. You can donate today. Savethebrave.org. Again, thank you for joining us so much today, Scott. We sincerely appreciate everything you have done and continue to do in the military and veteran community. Your service, sacrifice, and dedication to our great nation is truly admirable.
Hey, same to you, Brian. And if you're listening and you follow Brian and you want to get down and meet us both in person, July 22nd, Conroe, Texas, just north of Houston at Honor Cafe, Marine veteran-owned establishment. So we'll be down there as I hop on my Harley again and blaze across the country. 9 cities, 9 days, triple-digit heat in the month of July, all for Save the Brave. We're going to get out, ride for the Brave, and we'll see you in Conroe, Texas on July 22nd at Honor Cafe.
Chris Sadler's a great friend of mine, and I live pretty much here. And I pretty much live at Honor Cafe. So, man, it'll be great seeing you again, reconnecting, give you a big old bear hug and a handshake and then send you on out of Conroe on your bike and finish that trip across the country. But, folks, I want to finish with this. I want to finish it, as Scott says now. We will train hard, we will fight, and we will win. Folks, remember to stay inspired, stay encouraged, stay motivated, and always stay in the fight. Until next time, for Today with Tally podcast, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi, and God bless.